Hello. All right, we're ready. We're live.
Cold open.
So,
Let's do it.
yeah. So, what's happened this week? GPT-5, that's the big thing.
I know you should have said on our closeout last week, GPT-5 is coming in 2 days, but you didn't. You didn't do it.
Well, we didn't know what day it was coming, but we knew it was going to be probably this week. It is, and it turned out to be a very bad launch,
Why do you think
surprisingly.
it was so? Why do you think it was so poorly done, or what's the story? Do you think?
I think the main thing is that it's gotten so competitive that all the improvements since GPT-4 have been slow rolled by other companies, and then they had to like slowly roll it out and catch up. And so the delta between GPT-4 2 years ago and GPT-5 is quite large,
Yeah.
but not with all those small changes
The thing is everybody
like
you're
speed
saying is
and
like they've used all these other tools that have gotten them pretty far, and so they incrementally can't tell the difference between like Gemini or Grok and GPT-5. That's what you
incrementally, yeah. Every
Like
few
nobody
months.
remembers GPT-4. Like it used to be
GPT-4
that
was
Windows
slow.
95, Windows 95 would like update to Windows 98, and that would be like a huge thing because you only compared it against Windows. Um, but now it's like you're using multiple versions of Microsoft Word. Sorry, I was thinking Word 95, Word 98. And that those were large changes. But yeah, okay, that
Mhm.
makes sense to me.
What do you think that it went bit
I
more?
did not think that GPT-5 was very good. There's another problem I think
Hmm.
that we're in now with these tools, which
Do you
is
have
that,
evals? Do you have private evals that you tested on?
yeah, I have like an eval suite now. So I was actually much more interested in the open source model that they wrote.
Hmm.
It was pretty like woke and gay, I guess is how you would describe it. It
Okay.
just it's like it's not that part. Okay, so here's sort of like we'll set aside the sort of the algorithmic bias or whatever. Um, the challenge that I think that we're getting into is that we're asking the large language models to produce information for us that assumes that the model has a theory of mind. And so, in a sense, we've sort of anthropomorphized the model. Like I hear people refer to these models by like a pet name
Hmm.
uh, up more and more and more. Like they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I asked such and such," and it's not like I asked, Grok. It was like I asked like a pet name.
Chatty, grokky.
Yeah, Grokky or whatever, right? And you're just like, this is like very uncomfortable. Um, anyway, so what I think has happened is it's like do a research report and it sort of tells you the state of the world, but the state of the world, if you're an expert in the area, it's not quite right because it doesn't really have a like a model of human behavior and change and understanding. And so now people are trying to get it to reason about the world from a world model, which it doesn't have. And so there's this very like difficult dissonance that I think people are playing on. And then in the context of that, so you want something that has an understanding of the world. Like for example, my evals all include sort of realist interpretations of geopolitical events, and the AI still pulls up information that it believes is true that's contradictory. So it'll literally contradict itself because it doesn't have a quote unquote geopolitical worldview. In my case, I wanted to apply a realist lens, but it doesn't have any lens. And so it can't reconcile uh, that there are people that lie in the newspapers from 100 years ago and that the data that it's working with is just not true. Um,
Hmm.
and the best eval that I have for this is the
No
17th.
theory of mind.
Yeah, the best eval that I have for this is I ask it questions about the 17th Amendment to the United States. And the 17th Amendment, most people don't know about it, but what it did was it shifted the election of senators. So
Hmm.
in the US Congress, we have Congress and we have the Senate.
Yeah.
Originally, when the Constitution was written, the senators were elected by the state legislature. So the California state legislature would meet, they would vote who the senator would be, and then the Senate in the United States federal government would be the state's representation in the government. But the 17th Amendment changed that. And the reason why the 17th Amendment is a weird amendment is because in a very short amount of time, like 11 months, enough state legislatures voted for the amendment. But basically, it's like asking the state legislature to vote itself less power. It makes zero sense at all. And obviously it was a shenanigans. And like when you read about it, there's all this, the AI can't quite be like, no, the 17th Amendment was totally fraudulent. It's like it can't quite get there, but it gives you all the data about how it seems extremely improbable. Like imagine Governor Newsom in California and the California government doing something that would give President Trump more power. It's like unfathomable that somebody would do that. And that's exactly what 2/3 of the state legislatures did 100 years ago, which is not, it's just like, well, people were much more kind back then. I was like, no, it really weren't. Like something crazy was going on and we don't know about it because there were only 3 or 4 newspapers in the US that had any kind of.
But wait, what do you think was a conspiracy that they gave the people more power?
Basically, the newspaper owners in the U.S. they
think they could control the people's
they
opinion.
astroturfed the people into thinking that there was widespread support for the state legislatures to give up their voting power so that the general populace could have it, and like it doesn't make any sense from like a realist perspective. The way the world works today.
Do you think that the newspapers now have more power? Because
that was the whole point, right? Like they
right.
learned coming out of Reconstruction that if they told people who the candidates were, they selected the candidates that you would choose from, then they could shape the cone of how things would evolve. And that was the media political control structure until 2022, when the Ukraine war basically broke it irrevocably. You could say that it was
because of Telegram.
It's not Telegram. It's because the internet allows anyone to be a publisher. And so they don't have a monopoly on the stories that are allowed. So if you think about the 1960s, if you had a story that was of national relevance, you had to get it on one of the 3 television channels, ABC, NBC, and CBS, or in one of the 2 or 3 national syndicated newspapers like Associated Press, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, LA Times. If you couldn't get it, or San Francisco Chronicle, Chicago Tribune, but all those newspapers ended up being owned by the same people by then. And so there was basically less than 10 media entities, and they would all, and there's like stories about how the leaders of these studios or newspapers would have lunch in New York City every Thursday.
New York City.
Like
and
Bob,
that's democracy, baby.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. And they would meet and they'd be like, yeah, we don't want to run that article. And then if they didn't run it, nobody knew about it. So it was like it didn't happen.
The same things. That's what people are afraid of with AI. Like every world leader, like the Swedish PM, is consulting ChatGPT for things.
The reason why they're afraid of it with AI is because that's exactly what was going on with the mainstream media. And that's them telling on themselves, basically, right? It's like, if like you wouldn't have that mental model that like people could manipulate your media like with the AI if they weren't already manipulating your media with the regular newspaper. And this is why
projection.
This is why Israel is losing the war in Gaza, because Israel, more than any other country, was very effective at controlling the stories about Israel. But now that we have the internet, they're really bad at controlling the stories about Israel. So they can't sort of remove all of the not nice things that they're doing, and everybody can watch millions of views on TikTok or whatever of those not nice things. And so this is what I mean, where it's been like all hell has broken loose since 2022 on this sort of media control system. We don't say it goes back.
That's also the year that GPT-3 launched.
One, to bring it back to AI,
2022.
Yeah,
the year.
To bring it back to AI, the reason why all of the oligarchs are rushing to develop all these AIs, and all of a sudden the US is going to advance energy production technology by a century in the next 10 years, is because they need to figure out what the next control structure is. And so that's why you have like oligarchs trying to become podcasters and all kinds of, it's all crazy because they don't know how to project power anymore. It's not the same as we're going to own 30% of the New York Times, and so we can lean on them not to publish stories that are critical of us. That doesn't work anymore because, Joseph Perla and Michael Gimmerin can do a podcast episode in theory and millions of people could see it. And so you can't, it doesn't work. And so then they're like, okay, we're going to use the AI to filter everyone's thoughts. And so then they won't be able to criticize us. And you saw this with Grok, actually, where Grok was extremely critical of Israel's actions in Gaza, saying that Israel basically committing genocide. And then it got suspended by X's own policies. And then it got lobotomized. And people caught all of it. And they're like, this is so crazy that like the AI said something that was not deemed correct. And so then it was removed, and then it was removed all that data from its memory and then put back. I mean, that's just so 1984, but like our 2025 version of it. People just like losing it. So,
2084. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in the future with the Neuralink, we'll be able to delete it right from your brain.
Well, that's just the thing, right? Is there's all this near future science fiction where there's like computer programs that will erase somebody from all surveillance. And so you could imagine if you're in a Neuralink that, you know, you could be looking at people walking across the street, and then in real time, somebody gets erased. So you don't even know that they weren't there.
Well, that's the Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, exactly.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's really wild, like really, really wild. And then there's so much benefit to having a Neuralink that I think 99% of people will have one regardless of that failure model. So,
yeah, I don't know. I think the phones, there are people who are doing phone unplug and connect type Fridays, and basically you go to a room and you give your phone into a hat and then you hang out without a phone. And if everyone's Neuralink, you can't do that. And you get most of the benefits of a, full internet connection right now by using the phone as a separate device. So I think I'm not sure people will like Neuralink.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I think partially that's correct, but I also think that the idea that you can communicate thoughts directly to people with something like a Neuralink, instead of having to reduce your thoughts to a very small bit stream that comes out as audio and then has to be reinterpreted by the other person. Like if I could just mentally send a idea to you and then you would get it in the same way that I do, the speed.
Yeah, I don't think that means anything. I think it's always recompressed. This is data. It's all about like filtering the alignment of your models. And if you have an alignment of models, that's what a language is. That's what a concept, a word is. Like that's.
I think you're going to find that there's going to be people with Neuralinks in families that are called mentats, and they're the ones that are going to generate all of the profit. And so there is going to be this bimodal bifurcation where you are going to have like a majority of women and people who are not competitive in the work environment who don't have these things. But in order to be competitive, you're going to have to adopt these tools. Like it's just the history of technology is such that if you have something that increases the bit rate, you have to adopt it. Like literacy.
I think you're going to end up with, I don't think you're going to get much benefit from two people kind of connecting that way. I think you'll get most of the benefit from a person telling an AI, hey, go do this thing. It goes off for 3 hours and comes back and says, here's what I made. And then doing that loop. And then you have like an army, like five bots doing that for you. This leads into Claude has increased their length of their context window from 200,000 to 1 million.
And how do you feel about that? Because again, I think we're getting into a place where it's very difficult to evaluate.
Oh, to test whether it is working?
No, whether it's better.
Whether it's better to have longer? It's better to have longer. You could put a whole code base into there. It's more expensive as well.
But what's the difference between 1 million and 2 million, right? What do you think about this?
Well, it depends. I mean, it matters little sometimes, and it matters a lot if your code base is 2 million tokens versus 1 million tokens. It depends on how big your code base is, which is like 75,000 lines of code is 1 million.
So let me ask you this question then. Do you think that we'll get like a Unix model where all the code bases are less than the context window and they just get piped together?
Yeah, I'm wondering about that. Like, what is the context window? If your context window is 1 billion, then do you even need to train anything? You just throw in the whole context of the whole world and then you throw it, I don't know.
The other problem that I have with this is that the tokens are so inexpensive that there's no model for efficiency, but maybe there's an efficiency model somewhere in there. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, eventually we'll start working on efficiency, but it's not so important. And they make money. I mean, so currently they all pay per token. Well, yeah, most of the usage
Right,
is
which is like a misaligned business model. Because like
exactly
in my
misaligned business
ideal
model. So
case,
you're incentivized for it to be chatty and like talk too much and
yeah, and
say,
like to be
thank you
bad.
very much for that. Let's like, do you have any more questions? And so they're incentivized to burn more gas. But that's going to be true for a while, but then there's going to be a curve where people will want, maybe with the AI winter that's coming soon. Oh, here's an interesting question. Are we going to have a big AI winter soon now that GPT-5 is underwhelming? And there's
I
not going to
think
be a
that
GPT-6, clearly.
so no, and the reason for that is procedural next frame video generation, I think is going to really mess with people.
Genie 3. Yeah, I would do that. I actually don't like VR and I don't like this thing, but I think if I had a VR of like sailing through the Swiss Alps, that'd be cool. I would do that.
Or like yeah, hang gliding. But I think the point that Elon made was that any browser-based SaaS tool is also the exact same thing. And so you could literally just view everything as video, which
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's extending it too much. So what they're seeing with Genie 3 is it only lasts like a minute, and then they have some consistent objects, but not really. And if you have any dynamic movement in the world, it doesn't work. If you
yeah,
have any
so
kind of dynamic movement or other people, so any real
yes, but
state
the thing is,
requires logic, it doesn't work.
yeah, so
That method doesn't work.
this same thing happened with video compression. Initially, you would send every single image, and then they figured out that they would only have to send like every sixth image, and then just send diffs in the 5 in between. So basically, you'd have a scene, and as long as the scene didn't change, you could just send the deltas. That's why sometimes when you're like you lose bandwidth and then it comes back, there's like all this like crazy color gamma thing, and then like after a couple like 1 or 2 seconds, it reappears. It's because you had keyframes and iframes, I think is what they were called. And I think this can be the same thing with the procedurally generated worlds, where periodically there's a keyframe that's referenced against some like hard deterministic information. Like there's this object at this distance from you in the environment, or this is the value of some parameter inside of a dashboard. And so I don't believe, well, I don't necessarily believe that this idea of keyframing is not going to make its way into these like procedurally generated. Because I do agree with you that like when you start generating, if you don't get a keyframe, then after some amount of time, the whole thing falls apart because of entropy, basically. The entropy gets too high, and so then the whole thing collapses. But I don't think that that's going to be a. I don't think.
Yeah, but what you're describing is a whole different model. The way they did it is just frame by frame. To add other stuff like other people or keyframes or anything is just like a whole different idea of a system. That's the problem with a lot of this AI stuff. Like we can get something really impressive to come up really quickly, and we're very surprised by it. But there's no way to extend it to do what we actually want in the 100% of the cases. And so it just kind of is a good demo.
So,
And that's
so that
same with driverless cars. Like people drove across the country in the 70s with a driverless car 99.8% of the time. But that's a demo. Waymo had a demo, Uber had a demo, Lyft, we made a demo, and it felt good. You could get in the car and it drove around a little bit.
I don't know. I feel like FSD works pretty well. And
yeah, but I'm saying 10 years later, it took 10 years to get to the point where it works pretty well and still isn't 100%.
Yeah, again, so there's this whole thing that was like you run underneath a 4-minute mile, then everyone believes you can run against it. So there's kind of this interesting question where let's take self-driving cars. So you start off with a deterministic human created list of rules, and that only gets you so far. Then Tesla removes all of the extra sensors. So they just reduce it down to an image sensor. And then they come up with this idea of vector space. So we're going to take all of the objects in the world, we're going to extract them in real time, put them in a vector space, do our computations about wayfinding and all that inside of that vector space, and then translate that into a control system for the car. Then they went to this full neural net to neural net, model where it's basically like pixels in, pixels out. I don't think you get to pixels in, pixels out if you don't go through vector space. And so I think that the path is really important. And I think now that, like, when I look at other contexts, that the idea of a vector space is super valuable, even if you're going to shift into like a neural net to neural net model. And so I don't know. There's a bunch of other contexts around drones and just anything related to 3D like visual, like real world stuff. It feels to me like we're just at the beginning of using vector spaces there. And then eventually we do get to model.
I think it's a big, I mean, I was wrong. I mean, I'm surprised how good Genie 3 is, but I still think it's a dead end. It's just a complete dead end. It does not get you anywhere interesting. Okay. I just don't see how in the end you develop a whole world. It's like a dream. A dream. When you dream, it just kind of makes sense, but it kind of like starts to fade and get fuzzy. That's what that's like.
Is that why we only live to be about 85 years old?
And a dream is just not useful for training. It's just it's like if you learn how to walk in a dream, like it's not gonna work.
Do you think it's like that's the reason why we're only 85 years long, is like that's how long it takes entropy?
Oh, we run out of the dream time.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. That's why your body breaks down. You gotta keep looking at it.
So what do you think about this conspiracy theory that GPT-5 was just like a way to release a router? So I've had this.
Oh, definitely. I've had to save money. Absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, also a router is a UX improvement because everyone was confused about which one to pick.
Let me sort of set the table for the non-technical lay people that might be watching. The 3 people that text me every time. Hey, I like the
46 people are watching right now.
Okay, so here's the problem. When you go to Google and you search something 10 years ago, everything that you searched would come back at the same speed because all possible searches were pre-computed. And so you would get the results very quickly. The challenge with using AIs to replace the search bar is that depending on the complexity of your query, it would increase the amount of time that the AI would spend reasoning in order to give you an answer. And there was this problem where you would want to use the best, most capable AI system to answer your questions, but then you would come back and you'd ask a question like, how many nuclear submarines does the US have? And it would take like 4 minutes to find an answer. And so the conspiracy theory that we're talking about is that OpenAI released kind of a gimped version of the next AI, GPT-5, so that they could introduce something called a router, which is basically a system in front of the system that looks at what you wrote and then picks for you what the efficient way to get it is. Is this just a database lookup? Is this a very simple model? Am I translating from one language to another? Or do I actually need to do some heavy reasoning? And there's a pretty good argument that Joseph and I are making here that this was part of like a large part of the rationale for releasing this model now, because people were getting frustrated from a user experience standpoint and having to wait 4 minutes for a very basic answer to come back. Okay, that's the station identification. But so is that what you think is happening
it's
here?
Good to give the background for the audience learning about AI. Yeah.
But is that
I do think that's what's happening. They're just trying to save money, and they're trying to seem more magical. And also it's bad UX. I think people kept getting stuck in 4.0 or stuck in 0.3 and costing them too much money imagine getting stuck in 0.3 and all you do is ask it, what's the capital of Tennessee? What's the capital of Virginia? And it's like spending a minute and telling you one little thing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like it was driving me crazy. It was happening on X AI because I use the Grok family of models, and I was like, I can't use this.
Yeah, and then if you're stuck in 4.0 and you don't realize how to change it or when to change it, and then you keep asking it to do some crazy thing, and it just like immediately spits out some garbage because it's on 4.0. So it makes sense to have the router actually, just from a UX perspective. But by doing that, you can like charge. You can have much worse. You can have the best models in the US where the press is and where your big tweeters are, Twitter tweeters are, but then like charge still give it for free to everybody in Nigeria, but you use a much simpler model that's much faster and much cheaper for you to run. And that way, no one
So
knows
that's
that they
kind of like
save a lot of money, ton of money.
that's a charitable interpretation of what's going on. So is that like, would you say some AI version of first degree price discrimination? Which is basically like poor
They're
people.
definitely doing price discrimination. I mean, that's why the free version is obviously a much smaller model than the one that people pay for, right? That's explicitly said.
Well, I mean, if you pay for it, how do you know, right? That's the question that I have.
They hide. I mean, that's the thing. If they used to, my friend, when they were growing really quickly, was complaining like, "Oh, I'm paying for this, and it's constantly going down. ChatGPT, why
It's
can't
the
you handle the growth?"
Spotify
It was
Discover
going from
Week.
100 million users to 700 million users, and the guy was complaining that it goes down. Like, of course it's going to go down.
I know. Well, that was the other thing is people would complain like it was slow when they released a new model, and I was like, guys, this is like they're getting absolutely crushed on scaling.
Actually crushed. But now with the router, they can just say, okay, we have twice as much traffic today, so let's just run a 2x fast model. No one will know.
Yeah.
Like, no one will ask. It's still GPT-5. Next, they were not hopefully not running benchmarks right now. They'll run benchmarks next week when we add more GPUs.
Yeah, there's
But
no
that's
way.
smart. That's smart business. Like, why wouldn't you do that? And most
Well,
of their
and
business is
nobody would know.
consumer.
And then you
75% of their users are consumer payers. So it's not businesses that have SLAs. They can do whatever they want.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying is that you can also just create like an infinite tier for like rich people or connected people, like the God tier that always does the highest. It's like everyone who's using AI is like signed up for the Kaiser HMO, which is designed to
exactly
and as cheaply as possible, except for ultra rich people who are on like the Chubb insurance model. Where they
that was my idea I gave to another startup, and Grok should do it too if they're not already. Basically, you give somebody a higher tier with more expensive GPUs probabilistically based on your load, but also based on how many Twitter followers you have. So if you have the most Twitter followers, suddenly all your responses are super fast, super smart. And if you have fewer Twitter followers, then you're just gonna get like not the best Grok experience.
Yeah, this is actually why we built Arden Stats. So this is a whole other. So you have Hangout, and I built a company called Arden Stats.
Oh yeah,
where we actually have
Arden Stats. Let's promote it. What's the
ArdenStats.com.
How do you spell it? Arden, ARDN?
Yeah, ARDEN. Stats.com. And basically it's an AI leaderboard.
Sponsored by Arden Stats.
Yeah. It's an AI leaderboard. Exactly. And
Agent Stats, nice.
Yeah, like what we've done is we've given it to all of our friends in the open
This was vibe coded.
Yeah.
I can tell.
Yeah, it took us like a week to build this website. It was awesome.
Yeah, nice.
It's not a bad thing that it was vibe coded.
It just it has no like character in the design.
No soul.
I can just tell and like, oh, this is vibe coded. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's free.
Claude agent leaderboard. Wow, this is cool. This is like LM Arena for agents.
Yes, exactly. And the reason why we did this is because all of our friends using the open source models, they have this problem where they don't know like what the meta is. And so we gave it to all of them, and like publicly, you don't see it now, but there's like about 200 people that are using it. And then they can trade the metas with each other, like what recipe, if you will, like do this, then do that. And it's like been super useful. And so we're just learning a lot about all the shenanigans, and it's a way for the users to fight back against this, like,
what is AMP? I don't know that.
AMP is from Sourcegraph, and it's like a Claude Code at Cursor.
I never heard of it.
But better. AMP is sort of the best orchestration, AI orchestration thing right now.
Nice.
So anyway, what I really liked about this whole thing is that you have the router, and so now so basically what you're saying is like anyone in India is automatically going to get like a 2 models behind, and then poor people in the US are also going to get that, and then like rich, highly visible people will get that. And whereas Amazon, if you go on Amazon, you could take a screenshot of the price that you get for a particular product, and then you can upload it to a database, and then that database can look at a very small number of samples to see if there's price discrimination going on. That's currently not possible with AIs. And so that was part of like what we were trying to go for with Arden, was so that all of our users could be like, hey, we're actually getting a quality system, and it's not something that you can see by taking a screenshot. Unfortunately, it's something you have to look at over time, and so that's why we have to collect a bunch of metadata to do it. But anyway, I just thought this was a very interesting tie-in, so I'll pimp this thing that we've been doing on the background.
That's right. That's cool. Get it. Check it out. Arden stats to compare your agents.
Yeah, but it's only for like the most hardcore programmers right now. So you have to like know how to use npm, and you have to know how to use a CLI integration and all this kind of stuff. So it's not like one click and then it's done. So
for engineers, yeah, this is pretty hardcore. Yeah, I don't know if I would use it right now, but
yeah.
I haven't been programming a lot recently. I've been looking for sponsors and promoting things and learning about different ways to connect with AI sponsors and things like that. It's been going well.
Okay, so we talked about Router. We talked about GPT-5's launch being underwhelming. What do you think about Grok Imagine? That was another thing that's been kind of taking off this week.
I didn't know about it. What is that doing?
So Grok Imagine is Elon's multimodal like image and video tool. So you take an image and then you can animate it for 6 seconds.
Is that like the Taylor Swift naked thing?
I don't know what Taylor Swift naked thing is.
Some reporter was reporting about the Imagine thing, and it was creating spicy images of.
Oh yeah, it has a spicy image. It has a spicy video setting where you can look. It's not very good. Like the nipples are not very realistic, but yeah, it's. I would say it's getting there. I don't know.
So it probably wasn't trained on real nude info.
I think it was. So there's a couple of models now that the I've been watching this for a while.
Like anime. It's probably anime or like cartoon stuff, right?
Yeah, it is. It is somewhat cartoonish
or blurred.
But that said, the filters that women were using on Snapchat and Instagram were kind of already giving them kind of an animated look.
Right. That's true.
And so there was this thing where the animations
like hyper makeup that's like perfectly anime looking.
There was a hyper realism that was coming up from organic, and then there was a hyper realism that was coming down from basically like a normal photograph. And so now there's this very interesting dynamic where I know a guy that's running like a number of AI OnlyFans things, and they're very realistic looking and very profitable.
Wow.
And so the question of like, is it possible to generate photorealistic quality nudes? Yes, it is. And it's actually very economical at this point to do that. And that's actually partially why I think Grok Imagine included the spicy thing is that, so one way to look at it is we shouldn't do spicy because it undermines the value of women or whatever. There's some kind of feminist argument for it. The other argument for it is that people are already making millions of dollars a month on OnlyFans by using completely generated pictures of nude women. And so what we're doing is we're just basically adopting something that already exists as a distribution mechanism, right? And so Elon was able to get massive distribution for Grok Imagine because it will, if you put a girl in a sundress in it, it will like take off her sundress, right? If you click spicy.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so
there's yeah, I guess that's not revenge porn stuff because
it's not
a real person. Okay.
Well, so I think they're very casually. So there's an Overton window thing that's happening. So right now, if you upload a picture of like somebody that you know, it will not allow you to do that. But if you very carefully construct a Midjourney style photo of somebody inside of Grok and then do it, it'll allow you to do it. So you could like describe a photo generation in such a way that the output looks like Taylor Swift and then do the spicy content on it, which is probably what this journalist did. But I think we're very close to like real-time procedurally generated video porn of people that you know. Like you could have like, you know, Trump and Putin having sex or something like that. Like I think we're within 12 months of that.
Okay. Are people really using Grok though? Like if you look at market share, it's like 90% OpenAI. Like he has so many GPUs. I think they're very not used in the XAI. Like are people really using Grok?
I don't know. That's the other question that we talked about last week about, are people really using Twitter X? Because Threads has a bunch of daily active users, monthly active users, and the time
Yep.
on Threads is higher per session than it is on
Yep.
X.
Yeah.
There's a whole question around like, what data is good versus, I don't know what the answer to that is. Basically, I don't know.
But I mean, also just the trend. Like I on Twitter, certainly they talk about Grok a lot, but I don't hear about it anywhere else. Like I mean, except for the fact that he has the biggest compute cluster. I mean, it's amazing that he's able to make such a good model. But
I find Grok 4 to be the best model, general purpose right now for the questions that I have. That doesn't mean that ChatGPT making $10 billion a year is not going to do better, though, because eventually.
I think for coding as well, they're saying that Claude and Gemini and maybe sometimes GPT-5 are better. Like no one's using Grok for coding either, and that's like one of the main use cases.
So AMP code again is sort of like the meta for vibe coding. And people have just started to connect Grok to it, and people are using it. But the primary one is still Gemini. So when I look at what do sort of frontier open source developers use, they are using Gemini.
Yeah, I guess also I'm asking about Grok because he's purposely putting it XAI. I think he merged it with Twitter, right? Twitter is a consumer product.
Yeah.
Are consumers really enjoying, besides nude images of fake people, are consumers enjoying it just for fun purposes, making images? And
well, that they say that there's a lot of people that the number one use case is animating old photos. And so there is the case that I have started to see on YouTube, people who've animated old photos of people, like from the war or whatever.
That's a cute thing. Yeah,
that it's like kind of nice. It's kind of like Harry Potter or whatever. I don't know if that was if you remember that, where they had moving pictures.
Yeah, and there's apps, iPhone apps that do that, and I guess this kills that use case. But those iPhone apps weren't ever that popular. They use it once, maybe. It's not like you're doing it repeatedly.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know that it's a everyday use case.
I'm trying to figure this out for my own company, Hangout, right there. It's great for you can upload music.
It's over here. It's on this side.
It's over here for you.
Yeah, there you go.
For me, it's on the other side. But so basically, we might be able to like let people make music, make images, make videos. I'm realizing there's a liability potentially of people making porn and things like that. But also, I guess if the only use case is animating a photo, yeah, I mean it's not it's gimmicky. I guess could be good. Gimmicky gets you users. I think they got tons of users from the what do you make a photo of you as like Studio Ghibli photo. I think that got them like.
You're talking about ChatGPT?
OpenAI, yeah. And it sounds like for XAI, it's animating videos of old photos. But again, how long gets you some users? But then where does it go from there?
Yeah, I think really it matters what the attachment rate is. One of the things I've noticed about AI is that nobody can. There could be a situation where OpenAI gets screwed. I don't know how this would work, but I'm just trying to think it through. They released ChatGPT 5 or whatever, GPT 5, and there were all these users that had formed a parasocial relationship with like a previous model. Yeah. And so they kind of like had to make the previous model available again.
They made 4.0 available again. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder to what extent do they have to do that, because they have these people that have these parasocial relationships with their previous versions. And so that limits, it's kind of like when I used to work at Adobe, I did a project on Photoshop, and only about a third of the user base was on the latest version. And the versions of Photoshop came out every 3 years. And so as a result, if you think of it like a third, like the average time it took somebody to update was like 5 years. And as a result of that, the like product roadmap got really messed up. And so when we moved everyone to Creative Cloud, everybody can be on the latest version at the same time. And that was really important. But and so I wonder if we're seeing something similar here with OpenAI, where they've released this model and everybody really liked it and they form a relationship with it, and then they don't move to the next one. but I don't know that that's necessarily bad for them if it's cheap for them to run the old model.
I was thinking about that. Are these people who are now addicted to their boyfriend, are they gonna try to find something like, are they realizing that it's not gonna last forever, and therefore are they gonna move to an open source model where they can have the same frozen boyfriend forever?
Again, I don't understand. The other one is that if you look at the Reddit, my boyfriend is an
I'm in
AI.
love with Qwen 3. I love it.
Yeah. If you look at those things, the ratio of my girlfriend is an AI versus my boyfriend is an AI is way out of whack. Like
saying many more boyfriends.
100 to 1 is the ratio, or like it's like crazy high. And so
well, because the men want the Grok Imagine, apparently.
I don't know what it is that men want, but I will say that it is troubling to me that it's so imbalanced. Like, what if every woman has this like smut porn, whatever fantasy thing? Like that's
why my idea is you're not allowed to talk to an AI boyfriend. You have to take your boyfriend, turn them into a model, and then you talk to this Michael Gimmerin boyfriend husband model.
Yeah, maybe.
And then at least there's a connection to a real person there.
Yeah, I don't know. But the thing that
I get all the messages.
The thing that I thought that was really crazy is somebody made this like this was really through the looking glass, and I retweeted it a couple days ago.
No, what if you're legally not allowed to be talking to a bot?
Yeah,
our personality, unless it's connected to a person, and they get all the messages.
Our society is run by women, and they're not going to do that. So anyway, that's just like that's a hope and a prayer.
Isn't it healthier for women? That's what I'm trying to say. It's like it's better.
Yes, but women don't make decisions that are healthier for women. They make decisions based on what hurts the out group. They don't care about anyway. This is like not a thing. This is like not going to happen. I don't want to talk about it. There's this guy who made this thing about how the girl has a parasocial relationship with her AI, but he's like the lover who sleeps with her on the side. And there's this whole story about it, and it's just like so insane and completely believable. So it's like,
I mean, it's kind of like her.
The woman has a normal relationship with her AI boyfriend, and then the like dark, steamy, whatever rapist fantasy they all have from reading those smut books.
But that's the plot of Her, but reversed. That happened in the Her movie. Remember the AI. Sarah looked for a body double for the AI.
So yeah, again, a lot of these medias are made by men for men, but they have these sort of like weird inversions. But I'm just looking at the data, and the data shows that 100 to 1 women have AI boyfriends to men having AI girlfriends.
Yeah, and
those AI boyfriends are really just not
real. You're kind of presuming in a world where people are afraid of people giving up their own logic and reason to the AI, but it seems like like you're saying, examples of people already giving up their partner's logic to AI. So thus, if we do that to each other and to ourselves, then we literally have the AIs kind of running around on our bodies. Like we pick an AI like Grok or this, but that's just running up on our head, like telling us what to do. And we talk to another AI, and that's giving us the emotions thing. And it's just, that's the head running around. And then the monkey body is just the monkey body doing the monkey body thing. and then like in your story or in Her, the monkey bodies are just like while the AIs are making all these discussions plus whatever soothing words we need as well.
Yeah, well,
that's almost consistent. Like that almost works.
Well, that's exactly what a proto version of the culture would be.
That does. I didn't read the culture books. Is that what the culture's like? It's like the AI is telling everything to do, and the monkey body's just running around.
Yeah. So in the culture, because he was 20 years ago, the AIs do all of the serious work. And the only thing the humans do is like act out on their most venal, banal human, like biologic things, where they just have huge orgies and kill people and just all kinds of stuff. But the AIs make decisions about like which civilization we should add to the culture or not, or how to do all the diplomacy, or when to fight wars and all this kind of war is over in like 100 milliseconds. They're like, 20 billion people died. Like, they're like, okay, like it's just like totally nuts. And then everybody else just goes back to like parasailing or like, living in a in a simulated hell, and so they and they live 10,000 years being tortured, and it's totally crazy stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
You should read the Culture series.
That's funny because it's exactly like Greek mythology. Like,
yeah, no, well,
Greeks
so
were describing. That's how it was.
Yeah,
it will be.
That's exactly. Everything that was shall be, and all this has happened before, and all this will happen again.
That's funny. I gotta read it. I haven't. Wow.
So you should. So the first one, which is called Consider Phlebas, is the only one, is like not told from the culture's perspective. It's told from the perspective of somebody outside the culture. And then the second book, which is Elon's favorite, is called Player of Games, and it is really a good introduction to the Culture series. That
wow.
A lot of people give up after Consider Phlebas because there's like a cannibal scene that's a little bit too hardcore, and like it made.
So what's a good first book to read then?
No, Consider. You should read them in order because they're in chronological order. But and then later books reference earlier books, even though they take place hundreds or thousands of years apart. But you should read the books. The books are kind of they're insane. They're like, if you read them, you're like, this is like not a normal person would not read this and be like, this is like you read it, you're like, oh man, this is like really crazy. But Player of Games, I think most people can read and be like, okay, this is a vision of the future. Don't know if I like it, but all of the tech oligarchs believe that this is what the future is going to look like. So I should at least understand what all these guys think the world is supposed to look at.
Well, this brilliant person wrote this essay, what's after AGI, it's just games, so it makes sense.
Is that you?
Games. Yeah. This
brilliant person whose name is Joseph Perla.
No, it's in Visions of the Future person. I don't know. It's unaccredited.
You said it's unaccredited.
That's interesting. I've got to read it. Yeah, it sounds like it seems to be logically consistent, and maybe so it sounds weird, I guess, but that's the thing. The future is going to be weird.
It's super weird.
10 years.
And I think that's what messes people up, and they're like, this is like really, because like one of the things you can do in the culture is you can change your sex and gender because we have nanotechnology, and then you can live a lifetime as a woman. So like most people in the culture choose to live somewhere around 1,000 years old, and they talk about why 1,000 and not 10,000. And there's like a whole thing about like human memory, and eventually you get bored and you spend like 100 years living alone in the woods. And so you've done like kind of like
everything
thing you could do after 1,000 years. And like like one of the culture things is that everyone becomes a woman at some point in their life and has a child and raises it and goes through that experience of being a mother. And then, some people choose to primarily live as men, but then they'll do that. Anyway, this kind of technology is really like very hard for people to just sort of like, this is too weird. Like this is, or there's a bunch of internal glands that you can have that you can immediately change your emotions so that if you get scared, you can become not scared or this kind of thing. And so it's just like complete and total biological control. And what do people do with it?
Yeah.
And then
this is what Peter Thiel wants, right? Transhumanism, complete control. Or
like I said, the tech oligarchs read these books and they look at them like they're not dystopian. They're the only.
Right. That's what I'm wondering. Does it seem good? Like, it's like, oh yeah, life. I mean, that would be cool to experience all of life and then die after 1,000 years.
I have read the books and I like the books, and I'm staring at one of the books right now. I don't necessarily think that it's a negative vision of the future. I think one of the areas where it doesn't work is there's way too much about our reality that's really weird that the culture sort of sidesteps. So all the stuff around quantum entanglement and all of the stuff around religion and praying and how praying works. It's all sort of seen inside the world of the culture as a sort of like backwards anachronistic thing. So it's written definitely from a very secular, very atheist perspective. And there is another civilization that is basically Islam. And the culture like completely annihilates them because, they are religious based. And it's not super clear to me that you wouldn't have religions inside the culture.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of
Also seems like praying works in the culture because you have these AIs watching you and trying to fulfill your wishes.
well, so the AIs, they basically leave humanity alone, and basically like if you start killing people in the culture, then they make an AI like follow you around, like a lower level AI. It's like a robot, and then you can't do any more violence, and so there's no violence. Right? It's called being slap droned, and so you just have like a drone that follows you around, and then you can't do anything negative. And I don't necessarily think that like that's a very positive vision from a crime perspective, but
Yeah,
it makes your life meaningless, which is why a bunch of the people in the culture do like really crazy things like surf lava flows and this kind of thing, right? And then they can
that
do
sounds cool. Yeah, I
can
mean
do
that
like
sounds like a
real
positive. So it's very hopeful. It's like, oh, you can do all this cool stuff, is what the hopefulness is of it.
Yeah, I think it's very hopeful. All right, we're at time.
Time,
So what's
great.
your prediction going into next week? What are we going to talk about
Oh,
next?
wow. Yeah, GPT-5 came out. I was gonna say Claude is gonna come up with Claude 5 or something, but maybe they've already, done their exposition with long context Claude. That's
I
pretty
think there's
big.
going to be even greater demand for Ardent Stats going forward, just because nobody. Not even that we're going to be the ones that do it. Like I said, we vibe coded this project up, but
Yeah.
I just see a situation where nobody really knows which model to use and why.
Yeah.
You could say that you didn't know which model among the Chat GPT models to use, but you don't necessarily know that Gemini is the best for coding and
Right.
Imagine's the best for making porn or whatever, right? And so I feel like that's going to be a greater and greater thing.
I predict that GPT-5 is so underwhelming, and coding, a lot of people are writing articles about how coding doesn't really work with AI, and there's going to be the beginning of the deflation of the AI bubble. Maybe not next week, but in the next month.
So you think we're going to go into a winter for AI?
Little win. There's always a winter. People get so excited about AI with expert systems or neural net. They're just like, oh my God, this can solve anything. I don't have to work. Everyone gets so excited, and it's like the expectations are obviously right here, and there's no way they can reach them.
Yeah. So here's
no matter how good they are, they can't reach these expectations.
Here's my extreme out of the money conspiracy theory about AI. Basically, the US government in the last few years has successfully used quantum computing to break AES. Let's just take that as a key assumption. But as part of that hack, they require a huge amount of classical computing because it's a hybrid attack rather than a quantum attack.
So they need to cover up why
and so there's a whole thing that this entire AI build out was actually like us doing the Manhattan Project.
That's pretty brilliant. Yeah. How do you? It's like we need more compute. Okay, we ordered every possible chip. Oh no, we need to literally restructure the whole economy to make chips now.
Yes, exactly.
How are we gonna pretend that's happening?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, are GPUs useful for that though?
Yes,
they are. Okay.
Yes, they are.
Very. I like that conspiracy. It's
and not only that, everything that you would want to do if that was the case was done in the CHIPS Act. So if you think of the CHIPS Act as this huge thing, all the stuff that you'd want to do related to quantum technology, breaking cryptography is inside, like every single thing that you would want.
Everything is military. All right.
Yeah.